Hey everyone, today we're going to be learning how to embroider on a bucket hat, so make sure you stay to the end to learn all the best tips and tricks. Attention all machine embroidery beginners. Are you struggling to hoop your fabrics, don't know what thread to use, or even what tension is? Sign up for our free Embroidery for Beginners course and become an expert in no time. Click the link in the description to get started. Now the items we're going to need for today are of course our bucket hat, we're going to need our hoop, we're going to need a ruler and a pin so we can score our stabilizer because we're going to be using a tacky back tearaway stabilizer. All of our threads for the design and the design itself, which I have added a basting stitch. Being that this is going to be embroidered on a flat surface and this is more or less a tubular item, we're going to have to make sure we make some, accommodations to make this work properly on a flat surface. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to prep our hoop. I've already cut my stabilizer and this is a tearaway stabilizer that has a tacky backing, which means that on one side you can see the stabilizer, on the other side it actually looks like paper because it is paper. And we're going to have a piece that is going to cover the entire area of the hoop. I am always, if at all possible, going to hoop my items and then actually have them securely within a hoop. But in this situation, it is impossible to hoop a hat like this. We're not going to be able to hoop it within a hoop, so we have to make sure that we're going to float it on top. And I'm going to take my stabilizer, which does have the paper and the stabilizer, put it across my hoop, make sure it covers all the areas. I did have my hoop as tight can be, and I'm going to put it into the top end, take my palms down to the back side, and push it in place. And this is a lot tighter than I normally would want to hoop fabric because I'm not worried about stretching or burning the actual fibers. I want to just make sure this is as secure as possible. I want no movement within this stabilizer. Now I have my paper and my stabilizer hooped. I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to use my pin just to score the paper, and I do want to have a fairly flat and straight line because when I take my hat and I turn over, I can see that there is actually almost a brim like I would have on a baseball hat. I have this area where it actually folds over. I want to make sure that I fold that over because we do not want to sew through that actual brim there. I want to make sure it's folded over, and I'm going to create as straight of a line as possible that I'm going to match up to the scored line that I create on my hat. So I know that this design is going to be about 2.5 inches wide. I want to make sure that I securely have all of it held down with the tackiness of this stabilizer. So I'm just going to score a line with my pin, and I'm going to score it right into the paper so that I can tear it away afterwards. And then I'm going to go all the way to the other edge and I'm going to score a line as well. And then I'm going to go to my horizontal lines and I'm going to score those as well. And I'm going to score the bottom side. And what I've done is I've essentially created a square, and then I'm going to make sure that I peel away a corner, and I should be able to just take this, grab a corner of this, and pull up on it, and I've created a little window that I now have for my stabilizer. So there is the paper part of it gone, and here is the paper, which I'll just disregard. Here's my tacky stabilizer, and this is what I'm going to use to actually hold down my bucket hat until I get to the basting stitch, which is going to make sure that it secures it in place onto the stabilizer, and then I'll be able to sew. Now, one other thing that I'll mention is I do have a template. The template is printed with the crosshair on the horizontal and the vertical. The design is going to start center, and I'm going to cut this out as well so that I can place this onto my hat before I start. And that way, when I want to drop my needle into the position on the X where the crosshair is, I know that I'll be starting my design right on the bucket hat where I want. Now the placement on the bucket hat, if I look to the inside, I can see that there is actually a label on the back side, which means that this would be the front of the hat right here. And if I look, there is a seam on either side. So if I wanted to make sure I did this perfectly, I'd measure between the two seams on either side, get right in the middle, which would be approximately here, place my template down, again, right in the center, and I'm going to pin it in place so that I know exactly that my design will be kind of centered on either side. Now we did choose an oval design because obviously this is a slightly curved surface due to the nature of the actual bucket hat, and having a straight line would be even more difficult, so having this oval will actually make any little discrepancies as far as it not being done tubular. Because we're doing this flat, we're not going to see any issues or any problems. It's going to look great when it's done. Now to find the center point on this hat, I'm just going to take the seams on either side, fold it in half right here, and then basically find the center point. I don't need to be right down to the millimeter, but I can see that that is stretched halfway across. And if I do want to take a pin, I can actually pin right down either at the bottom or the top, but I can see that this right here is my center to that actual piece. That way, when I take my actual design, which I have my template for, I can position this so it's going to be centered on either side from the bottom to the top, and we're just going to pin it in place. And I'm going to come here and let's pin this side down first, making sure that it's centered to the pin. My lines are all centered up, and I got to make sure that I don't only go through one side of the fabric because there is that little head band around the underside. And then I'll do the same thing to the top. I'm going to come in and just pin it in place, and that is going to be essentially my placement for the piece. Now I can remove this one pin that gave me the original center placement. So I'm going to remove that from the back side, and that's where it's going to go. Now I'm going to get my machine, I'm going to put this in the hoop first, and then I'm going to place this down while it is actually under the machine, because I'm going to have to move things out of the way and almost turn this inside out to proceed. So now we have our hoop with our stabilizer. We've cut our little window in there within the tacky stabilizer. I have to make sure that I raise my presser foot, slide that underneath. Let's just have this in place. It's nice and secure. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to back up, and I'm going to move my hoop over just a little bit so that I have more space. I'm going to take my hat and again turn it over so that I have that little sweat band or strap right here. It's going to be out of the way. I'm going to put that underneath the machine, and I'm going to try to move all of the material out of the way and get a flat surface. So I'm going to almost place it like this, where I have it almost centered in my hoop. I want to make sure that I have that band out of the way, and I'm just going to flatten it down so that I have everything as straight as possible when it's laid down on that stabilizer. So I'm making sure that everything is pressed down. The first stitch that it's going to do is a basting stitch, which is going to hold that in place. I'm making sure that that band underneath here is actually out of the way because I don't want to stitch through that. And that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to make sure that I'm going to drop my needle down. And when I drop my needle down, I'm going to find that center mark on my template, which is going to be right about here. So now I know based on my template, that is the center of the actual design. At this point, I can remove my pins from my template, remove the piece of paper, and I should be good to start stitching the basting stitch of this design. Again, just making sure that everything is out of the way, that there's no buckles in the fabric at all, and I should be ready to go. For all you Embroidery Design Club members, be sure to print off the accompanying cheat sheet recipe card for this video. Don't forget that as an Embroidery Design Club member, you can instantly download all your cheat sheet recipe cards to help you quickly and easily embroider virtually anything. Plus, you'll also get access to over 30,000 embroidery design, bonus projects, free giveaways, live training, and more. Click the link in the description below to learn more about our fan favorite embroidery club now. Okay, so the design is done. We're going to remove the frame, and then we'll go to the back side. And what we're going to do first is we're just going to cut all of the bobbin stitches on that basting stitch. So we'll cut every third or fourth stitch all the way around, and then we can just pull that all out. That'll pull all of that right out there. And then all we have to do is take this, and because it's tearaway, we're going to tear it away from the edge. And there it is done. A little bit of cleanup with some of the threads, and our design is finished. So let us know if you have any questions in the comments. Watch the video above, and I'm gonna go catch some waves.